The coronavirus clearly has a major impact on airline operation and by extension on global aviation supply and demand. Many flights are being cancelled, either by the airlines themselves or as a result of authorities closing airports or routes. Travelers from China also face health checks when arriving at foreign airports and in some countries are put into quarantine on arrival. Cirium holds schedules data for almost all the world's airlines, and we are tracking how airlines are responding to this crisis by reducing their schedules. We can compare this year's schedule to last year to measure the overall impact. For the first several weeks of this year, when the news about the virus hadn't really broken globally, the capacity growth for Chinese markets, both domestically and internationally, for 2020 was running at about 8% above the levels seen in 2019. The 2020 Chinese New Year fell at the end of January and as normal showed a dip in the schedules, just like in 2019. Based on the schedules as they had been reported to Cirium by the 24th of January, and judging from the fact that the February 2020 capacity is almost the same as 2019, some proactive cancelling of flights had already taken place by then. By the 31st of January, the position hadn't changed much, and the level of scheduled flights, shown as the yellow line, was still around the same level. The real drop came after the schedules were updated over the weekend, the 1st and 2nd of February, and by Monday morning on the 3rd of February, the position had changed substantially. The red line shows the number of flights scheduled to operate to, from and within China, which has now dropped by 24% compared to what was expected to operate just a few weeks ago. That is a major drop, but it gets worse. Through our Cirium flight tracking, and we track more than 95% of scheduled flights globally, we know that many of these scheduled flights didn't actually operate. The light blue line in this chart shows the dramatic drop in flights actually operated compared to what was originally scheduled to operate. It shows that immediately following the Chinese New Year celebrations, there was a small uptick in flights, but not nearly as much as would have been expected. As the travel restrictions started to kick in and demand was dropping because passengers no longer wanted to fly or were allowed to fly, the actual number of flights has dropped to about half of what is normal for this time of year. Indications are that in the early days of this week, even fewer flights are being operated. On top of that, and judging from past experience with SARS, the load factors on board these flights will have decreased as well, although we don't have any actual data on load factors yet. The current schedule shows a small increase for next week, but we think that actually airlines just haven't formally removed next week's flights from the system, especially as the number of flights operated is currently so much lower. Depending on how the spread of the virus develops, more flights will be removed from the schedules. To put this into a global perspective, capacity to, from and within China accounts for about 16% of global capacity. If the current trend of 50% cancellations continues for February, and assuming that the capacity growth in the rest of the world stays flat, then the drop in global capacity for 2020 would be around 8%. With IATA predicting a 4.7 capacity growth for 2020 as recently as December last year, it is clear that the coronavirus has the potential to fundamentally impair 2020's global airline capacity growth, and it seems likely that the growth number will now be much lower. And it will also have an impact on airline profitability. The cancellations are costing the airlines a lot of money in terms of lost revenue and additional costs. For example, Cebu Pacific has indicated that this could hit their bottom line by up to $79 million for 2020, and it might indeed lead to serious financial difficulties for some airlines. We will continue to monitor the situation as the virus develops, so don't forget to check back here or on our website cirium.com for updates.